Ready, Mark?
I'm ready whenever you are.
Let's tell you what. NFL kicked off the week last night, Thursday night football. So let's start talking NFL.
All right.
And we don't have to talk too much about the game last night because it was pretty much decided late in the third quarter. That Buffalo team is every bit as good as we anticipated that they were going to be.
I know the people that bought Buffalo Bills futures to win the Super Bowl are feeling pretty good right now
There you go.
after that performance that they saw. But, we're kind of contrary in here, so we'll see what happens and how they adjust the price of the Bills because they're going to cater to the public. You know that, the odds makers. So I'm going to be anxious. In our Playbook Preview Guide magazine, on each team's schedule, we have a line that came from the Superbook in Las Vegas of what every game would be. And I'll be curious to see what Buffalo's line on their next game is, as opposed to what it was in week number two. So we'll check that out next week, and we'll see whether or not that adjustment was made.
Yeah, considering everything going on with Stafford in the offseason and your Super Bowl championship team, and it's not like they've been contending for a Super Bowl for the past 10 years, so they're used to it. I really wasn't very, I personally, and it's LA, I just wasn't really surprised that LA got off to this kind of start. And I wouldn't be surprised if they get off to a slow start in general for the next several weeks. So, and you can't take anything really out of what happens in week one. People are always going to wind up over evaluating things too early in the NFL.
Well, we talk about the NFL Super Bowl loser jinx. Well, the NFL Super Bowl winner jinx is even worse. Last 18 years in a row, nobody's repeated. So, that's targeted team is exactly what that means. And we'll see whether or not they can get their act back together here sooner than later. I think they will. But I think that thing that trapped all of the Vegas sharps is the fact that they dressed them up as an underdog. And, that was all largely because of the Matthew Stafford elbow situation that was out there. The Rams actually opened up the small 1 point favorite in the game, and they went off as the underdog, largely because of that. But bottom line here is Buffalo was much the better football team, and they did deserve the victory.
Before we get into these games, and want to remind everybody that you have your own channel that is just kind of getting started. Playbook Experts. The exact title of the channel, Mark, and tell everybody about the handicappers.
Well, the channel is called Playbook Experts. It's our YouTube channel. You can log into that. You'll find out all the videos that we post. They're on the YouTube channel. And when you do, we would like you to subscribe to the channel because when you do, we'll notify you when and if every video is posted subsequently thereafter. All those videos are posted on our playbooksports.com website in our video page, our video cataloging page as well. So go to the YouTube channel, watch those, or you can visit them at playbooksports.com for the videos from all of each and every one of the Playbook experts.
And one of them, JH, I guess his tag is JH Sportsline, right?
Jeff Hockman, yes.
And Jeff did a show this week, produced the show for him. And one of the things I picked up was he had a play on teams that missed the playoffs versus teams that made the playoffs, especially if that team is a dog. So I looked over it, and I guess there were 3 games this week of teams that missed the playoffs going up against teams that made the playoffs, and if the team is a dog. So the 3 instances, well, actually the 2 instances where the team was a dog, Detroit, Philly, Chicago 49ers. The one that was a favorite, Miami, New England. So those are the games that I'm pretty sure that is it. I don't know if there's any more of those, but those, and I actually wound up picking 2 out of those 3. The only one I didn't is I actually took Philly over Detroit. I just can't. I can't trust it. As much as I boost up Detroit and I really think they're headed in the right direction, and I completely believe they are, I still have a hard time picking them low point spread against a good football team.
You hear this? Do you hear that, Greg?
Yeah.
That knock? Okay, you know what that is? That's Hard Knocks. That's the Detroit Lions, the Hard Knocks football team this year. And the reason I'm calling it out is the fact that these Hard Knocks teams are outstanding in their first game when they're an underdog, especially a home underdog. Okay, 5 straight wins. Okay, straight up as an underdog. So just keep an eye on that. When they host Philadelphia this week, we'll see what happens. And another sidebar note: Jeff Hockman from GH Sportsline. He's a co-owner of Tis the Magician. He's a really, really big horse racing fan. Yes, so he watches the Hardoon shows and you and everybody else. So Jeff's a big time horse guy, and he's got a pretty nice horse there, and Tiz the
Yes,
Magician.
absolutely. All
Yes, he
right,
does.
good to know. So there you
Yeah.
go. So maybe and I was kind of, again, because I think this is going to be, because we talked about this on the preview show with Ryan, you Ryan and I, and Detroit was one of my wild card sleepers. So I still think that they're I want to see it. I really do, because Philly also could be the NFC East champs. Should be down to Philly and the Cowboys. Let's talk about some of these other games, though, that do stick out in the NFL. One of the big ones, really, on the East Coast side is New England and Miami, and Miami's a 3.5 3-point favorite in that game, and Miami actually is my top pick this week. Because of just the way that they've dominated New England. I mean, who would have thought that you can kind of dominate Bill Belichick? But dominating Bill Belichick is, when you're 3-0 in the last three, that's about as much as you get. So I don't know how much longer this can go. But they have won and covered the last three against the Patriots. And I did notice a trend. And by the way, I get these trends right here, of course, naturally, in the Playbook magazine. The Miami Dolphins are 7-0-2 against the spread in their last 9 as division home favorites of 5 or less. The only thing I'm really concerned about is Mike McDaniel in his first start going up against the Master.
Yeah, there's going to be an improved Miami Dolphin football team. We've talked about it a lot this year in the offseason, and this is a big stepping stone for them, this first football game. I like the Dolphins with you in this contest. My biggest concern is what you just hit on, is the fact that they beat New England 3 straight games. And in handicapping National Football League games, that's the magic number when it comes to revenge, is three exact, okay? Because what happens with teams that have that 3 exact revenge, they simply don't want to be eventually dominated by their opponent in the series, and they do everything they can to put a halt at 3. 3's enough. And that's my biggest concern in this game. Will they take Bill Belichick out 4 times in a row? Makes this football game very intriguing to me. I think talent-wise, if that aspect of the football game wasn't there in my mind, I would be all over Miami with you. But that being the case, I'll sit and cheer with Miami for you.
I appreciate that. I can use all the help I can get, even though I'm not a Miami fan. But I think the other thing is that the Patriots, so far, there's just so many negative things coming out of preseason camp because of who's calling plays, and they're changing the offensive scheme, or maybe they're not, and look how bad the offense looks. And so the offensive side of the ball, it just now, is it a mirage, a Bill Belichick mirage, that there's some sort of mess going on with the offense? Well, we won't know until Sunday. But again, it's only week 1, and maybe it will take the Patriots offense a few weeks to get going. But I think the thing that really moved it over the top for me was just the fact that Miami seems to just play New England really well, and this is the one team that New England has had problems with, not just the last 3 games, but really for several years now. It's been a tough out for the Patriots.
You're going to also have in your favor in this game is the heat factor, the humidity, okay?
There you go.
It is very warm down here. Like I mentioned before on our other show, I've been up in Cleveland all week long and kind of took in the cool weather, which I really enjoyed, and stepped off the airplane, and it was like, oh boy, I'm home right now. I mean, that's just me as a person. Imagine these football players that are basking in this 95% humidity and 91-degree temperatures. That bodes well for Miami in a game like this.
Yep. By the way, there was another early game that happens to be one of my top plays, and that's Tennessee against the Giants. And the reason that this is just one of my top plays is because it's one of those, but I'm a little bit concerned because it's almost like this, is this too good to be true for me? Or is it because, as we talked about on our preview show, that there are still a lot of people who are doubting Tennessee this season, that they just think after what happened at the end of last season with Tannehill, and that's why they went out and got a quarterback, and a lot of people think Tannehill's done. Is that the reason why it's more about Tennessee not being respected because people just don't think they're going to be very good this year? Or is it something else? Because I just think this line is way too low. The Giants don't look good at all. They've got all sorts of offensive line issues. I was a little bit surprised to see them a little, but I do understand Tennessee is not very good as a home favorite. So I know that comes into play.
Well, you've also got, when people evaluate this football team, they see that they traded A.J. Brown, who was a pretty good weapon for them. That was all about money. It was all about contract and opening up space. So, he's gone. They bring in Traylon Burks, who did not light the pre-camp on fire at
No.
all. There were reservations about him anyway in the draft. He had all the dynamics of a wide receiver, but he just doesn't run his routes the way he's supposed to run his routes. So we'll see whether or not it works. What works for New England, or I'm sorry, for Tennessee here is the fact that you've got Derrick Henry back in the lineup.
Uh-huh.
And with Derrick Henry back in the lineup, it takes a lot of pressure off of Ryan Tannehill. He doesn't have to be the man, if you will, per se. And Ryan Tannehill is also very, very agitated about the way the season ended last football season here. I think he's going to try and make a statement in this football game, and I'm with you. I like the Titans in this contest.
And it's a good head coach, too, Mike Vrabel, against a
Yes, he is.
new head coach in Brian Daboll for the Giants. Now, this Green Bay, Minnesota line, I had to bring this up. And when I first saw it, I'm sure a lot of people were looking at this line initially and going, all right, what's the catch? Come on. What's the catch? Green Bay's only favored by 1.5. Come on. But I knew I'd find this kind of information once I saw the line. And sure enough, there it is, staring you right in front of the face, that the Minnesota Vikings, or if you want to look at it from a Packers perspective, the Packers are just 1-4 straight up, 0-5 against the spread. Their last 5 is a road favorite at Minnesota. This is just a situation in this series that doesn't work into Green Bay's favor, no matter what time of year it is, no matter how good Green Bay's looking. This is one of those trick spots for them.
It is a trick spot for them. They played very, very difficult there. You can go back to the Brett Favre days when Brett Favre struggled in Minnesota as well. This is really, really an age-old rivalry between these two football programs. They're borderline states. Neither team likes one another. And you get Minnesota's best effort when the Green Bay Packers come calling here. Now you've got a new head coach here from Minnesota, who I think is a fast improvement here. I think he's going to really help the team, Kevin O'Connell. And you've got the Green Bay Packers, who all of a sudden have their biggest weapon no longer here, Devontae Adams. And, you can say Aaron Rodgers might shrug that off as much as he can or wants to. But the fact of the matter is he was as good as a wide receiver as there is in the National Football League. So, with the complexion changing for Green Bay, Minnesota with the new head coach, and this fierce rivalry, I'm with you, I'm with Minnesota. And sometimes I'm going to quote a good friend of mine. His name is Howard Eskin from Philadelphia, a sportscaster. And he always says to me, he says, the line's telling you something. The line's telling you something. When the line is this short, it's there for a reason, okay? Yeah, exactly right.
That's why I knew it was telling me something.
Yeah, there you go. It's not 3.5 Green Bay. No. So listen to the odds maker. The odds maker knows what he's doing.
Okay, and then one of my other top picks of the week, and this one is just more of a kind of gut feeling. Dallas is a 2.5-point home dog against Tampa Bay, and then throw in some nice trends as well. And look, you got Todd Bowles taking over as head coach again. Now, is he the Todd Bowles that was the coach of the Jets, or is he the new improved Todd Bowles because he has Tom Brady as his quarterback? We'll find out. But let's recall last year when the season started, it was a really competitive back and forth football game. So Dallas could have won that game easily. So that was a really good football game, opened a lot of eyes to the Cowboys. Didn't have the season that they had hoped, but still, whatever. It was competitive. And then the same thing. We've had this Brady off season where is he in? Is he out? What's going on? I mean, there's no Gronk, so there's that. So maybe Tampa Bay gets off to a slow start this year. And then this was the one that put it over the top for me. The Cowboys have covered 6 straight as a home dog with 5 outright wins. So that's why I took him as one of my top picks.
That's a pretty strong number. The Dallas Cowboys rise to the occasion when they're dressed up in that particular role. What also I think is interesting is the fact that you've got in Dallas a football team here that does like to play under the Sunday night lights. The last 15 times they've been there at home, they're 11-4 straight up and 10-5 to the number. You're going to get Jerry Jones's eye on this football game. All the Cowboys fans around the country are going to be tuned in and glued in here as well. I look for a big effort by Dallas, and I still think, to me, the bottom line is all the garbage that was happening with Tom Brady in the offseason is a total distraction for this football program, for this football team. He can say what he wants, patch it up, sell it, package it however he wants. It still doesn't hold water to me. I think Dallas is going to end up being the better football team this year, and I like them to win this football game as well.
Okay. Now, again, Monday Night Football, home Cowboys. What was that record?
Sunday night.
Sunday night. Okay.
Yeah, Sunday night. 11-4 straight up and 10-5 to the spread.
Okay, I like it. It goes
Yes.
into my notes section
There
of the
you go.
Playbook magazine. All right. And then before we wrap up, as far as the games on in the NFL, you guys, you and Victor talked about the AFC West matchup between the Raiders and the Chargers, and that's
Correct.
available on your website, on your YouTube channel, excuse me, and your website. Why did you guys go into that game?
Well, it is, I think, an attractive AFC West game, and I like the AFC West in itself. I think every week, whenever you pair up teams out of the AFC West, they're going to be attractive because it's going to be fierce battles. I think you're going to see a lot of high-scoring football games in the AFC West, and there's a lot of eyes that might be on other games like this Tampa Bay Dallas football contest that we mentioned. They were on the Buffalo Rams game Thursday night, but this is a football game I think that deserves attention, the Raiders and the Chargers. And I went so far as to say that don't be surprised if you even bought a little piece of the Raiders to win this division. You're going to get a big price in a division that could likely see all four teams end up with winning records. So
That would be something.
yeah, it'd be nice.
Yeah. And by the way, the Chargers are looking for revenge in that one after the Raiders knocked them off last game of the season. That was whoever it wins in kind of deal. New head coach Josh McDaniels, so that should be interesting. And Raiders are 9-4 against the spread in their last 13 as a road dog. Even though last year as a road dog in LA, the Chargers did beat the Raiders and covered that game. Finally, just taking a look here to see if I notice anything. Well, just to remind everybody, Eberflus is another new head coach for the Bears. They're taking on San Francisco. Keep in mind, Eberflus was the defensive coordinator with the Colts last year, and he did a pretty good job of holding San Francisco down to just 18 points. Indy won that game, but the Bears are 0-5 against the spread. Their last 5 as a home dog. So even though I took the Bears in that game, that was just more of when I looked at it, what I did this week was I seemed to take a lot of these home dogs that were getting like 7 points, 6-7 points. I just think it's too early in week one, unless I just have a complete feeling about that favored, which I just don't. And there were a lot of reasons why I said, you know what, maybe this 6 or 7 point home dog is a good play for week one. And that's kind of where I went. I think I took 4 or 5 of them this week.
Well,
including, by the way, Houston. That was my only outright upset. I took Houston to upset the Colts.
Well, when you got these dogs like this, and we got a ton of home dogs this week in the National Football League, unbelievable amount. But when you get the ugly ones, they're the ones that are easy to pass by because there's some teams that are good teams that are underdogs at home. So a lot of people will
like Arizona.
Exactly. They'll shy away from these Houstons and these Chicago Bears type football teams. And, sometimes the ugliest girl might be the best dancer at the prom, okay? So she deserves a whirl, she deserves a dance, and so too do the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, because the Colts 6-3 against the spread their last night. Excuse me, Houston 6-3 against the spread their last 9 as a home dog. Don't forget, last year they upset the Chargers at home as a 13-point dog, and they won by 12. And they also, don't forget, they nearly upset the Patriots early in the season last year as a home dog. So, and I think they're a better team. Again, I don't know how better, but I actually think Houston is going to be competitively better this year and an interesting dog. And I figured, why not take them? Last thing, Cincinnati. Is there anything to be wary of for Super Bowl losers? Maybe week one or anything, early in the season? Anything at all there to be concerned about with Super Bowl losers, Cincinnati?
Well, Super Bowl losers, if I could put it into terms of the world that we live in today, a lot of them carried COVID in the past and didn't know it, okay? Very, very bad plays, especially when they're favored in football games and especially when they're going up into revenge, which Cincinnati's doing. They beat Pittsburgh 3 times in a row.
Killed them.
Yes. So you're going to get Pittsburgh's best effort in this football contest here. I guess the biggest question is going to be Mitch Trubisky and what goes on there. But I do see Cincinnati going backward this football season, and I do have to grab the points. I like it. There you go, Joe Burrow.
Backwards. I don't know. We'll disagree on that one. But that's because I They were a little pet project team for me last year, and they made me look good. So, all right, let's talk college now. And I got to start off talking college by feeling really. I'm going to beat my chest out because I actually beat Jim Feist 2-0 in picks last week. I was listening to his picks on the on some of the shows, and there were two games that when he made them, I was like, oh wow, he's going against my team. I go, that's probably not good for me. Then he went against my other team. I was like, oh, well, that's just not good for me. And it turned out good for me. So one of them was the Coastal Carolina game. I know we both liked Coastal Carolina against Army, and I'm trying to think of what the other one was. I can't remember that right now, but anyway, so that I we know Jim Feist. He's a legend in the industry, and
Yes.
for me, I'm no professional handicapper. So if I can, I'll probably go 2-12 the rest of the season against him. So I'll take the 2-0 start. One of the games I know he likes this week, I like this week as well. So we'll get into that a little bit later on. I just want to kind of also recap a few things that stuck out for me. North Carolina. That game, because every week in college football, you have these really crazy endings or things happen that don't normally happen in the NFL. And how many times have we seen? I don't know about you, but like when you got that point spread situation going, and there's that onside kick, and you say to yourself, as long as that guy doesn't return this onside kick for a touchdown, I'm good. It's over. I've got the game covered. And then the dude from North Carolina returns the onside kick for a touchdown. Now, it almost backfired on him because I'm sure he got an earful after that, because that gave Appalachian State an opportunity to go down the field in a couple of plays, score a touchdown, and go for two. So in Appalachian State had a couple of chances with 2 points conversions to tie and beat North Carolina, and they blew that. So that's why when you return these onside kicks, you're not supposed to. How many times do you see it? I don't know about you, Mark, but I have never had an onside kick attempt where the team that scored the touchdown covered the game and I was on that side.
First time for everything, Greg.
Well, it's coming then some week, but I haven't had it yet.
Well, that was about as wild and wacky of a football game as I can recall ever seeing. I mean, just going back and forth, and the fact that Appalachian State failed 2 times on 2-point conversions.
That quarterback, he had the
Yep.
guy wide open.
Yep.
And then he tries to take it himself the next time.
Yep. But that quarterback was also the guy that led him to
he had a big game. Bryce, yeah.
40 points and 6 touchdowns in the fourth quarter.
I wonder if Clemson feels bad about Bryce no longer being there.
Well, I'm sure that's going to probably end up keeping Dabo Swinney up at night.
Maybe.
Yeah, because it looks like after that first football game, they still might have some quarterback issues going on there at Clemson. So, but it was a great football game. I don't think we'll see one as exciting. If we do, we're in for a big treat. And on the flip side, one that was just as boring had to be Iowa.
Oh. I certainly hope, look, Iowa played that kind of way, not to this extent, but they did it last year. They got no offense. It's all defense and special teams and turnovers. And once again, they get the safeties, and that's their cute little way of I don't know. I'm actually taking Iowa State this week. I think eventually that kind of stuff is going to catch up to you. And remember, we talked about this in the preseason, that maybe this is an Iowa State team that we need to keep an eye on because nobody's talking about them. And I like the quarterback. Purdy's been there forever. I like that kid, the lefty kid that played last week. He had a great percentage. He was able to throw the ball down. Hutchinson had 3 touchdowns. So, you know what? Iowa's not beating Iowa State scoring 7 points. So, and Iowa State hasn't beaten them in 6 years or 7 years. I think that they're overdue.
Well, what they're overdue for is to score a touchdown. They win the game and didn't even score a touchdown.
Yeah, right.
It was rugged. I mean, I'm glad I didn't have to attend that football game. That's all I can say.
By the way, the opponent North Carolina plays this week is Georgia State. And I was looking in your guide because there was a trend for Georgia State. And the trend was, let me get it out here. The trend was regarding the 35-point mark from the previous week. So the Panthers are 0-11 straight up, 0-10-1 against the spread as dogs of 7 or more under Sean Elliott after allowing more than 35 points. They allowed 35 points last week. So my question is, there might be some people out there that might go, well, it's not 36 or more, but it was 35, so maybe that's still a good trend. Should they think like that?
Well, those are people that want to make cases, and when you start fudging numbers,
Yes.
if you were a chef, you get thrown out of the kitchen doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
It has to be the real McCoy, and it's like making the case for a football game based on an opening line. Well, if that opening line is no longer there, there's no case to be made. So, make another case is all I can say. If you're going to make a case, don't stretch the truth. That's the bottom line.
And if you want to make a case for winning football games with your place kicker, that could cost you a job, because there were two teams that lost last week because of their kicking game at the end. One was LSU, and one was East Carolina. Now, in the LSU game, and now talk about crazy endings. So how often are we going to see this, Mark? Until can't these coaches come up with a situation when they're at the goal line or at late in games or important 4th and 1s where they say, you know what, we're going to put together a short down package that we're going to practice once a week for 5 minutes. That's it. 5 minutes, once a week, quarterback under the center, practice it, because whenever I get down to the goal line and I have to run the clock or I'm trying to get a yard or something, I'm not going to be in a shotgun and I'm not going to be pitching the ball. But these coaches won't do it, and I don't understand it, and it almost cost Florida State. I don't know why they're pitching the ball, but they did, and almost cost them. So LSU comes down the field, scores a touchdown late. The instant replay was taken 30 minutes before we can get the damn final playoff. Score a touchdown. Now they're kicking the extra point. And all I can say is this, because we've talked about this. I know Ryan believes this. Ryan Dunleavy believes in every situation all the time you should go for 2. I'm not completely like that, but I will say this. In college football, because you can't count on kickers, they're so young, I don't care how good they are, that in those particular situations, I can't do it. I can't leave it up to the kicker, because you know what? It's not like it's a shot that's not good for you. You're 3 yards away. The game's in your control. Why not just go for the win? But you got to do it just about every time. You can't pick and choose. If you do it every time, you won't be second guessed. You just say, hey, that's what I do in that situation. I'm not leaving it up to my kicker. I'm always going for it. And to tell you the truth, I think most fans would like that approach anyway, but that's just a terrible way to lose.
Well, it's in the mind of the new young analytical head coaches who believe a lot of that, going for 2, doing those types of things. And, the question then becomes, would you rather have the bird in the hand, the almost sure-locked extra point in college football when you kick it, or double your money when going for the 2? In the National Football League, where the extra point is obviously, 30 yards longer, maybe there's a case to be made for going for 2 more times often than not. The biggest case that I would make is I like the coaches that disdain going for field goals. You don't win football games by making field goals, okay? You win football games by scoring touchdowns. And I like those coaches that get inside, the 15-yard line, inside the 10-yard line on 4th down, and they'll go for the first down. And those are the football teams that generally make the play.
Or you get coaches that if you're once you get into field goal range, they get all conservative. And I'm going to leave it up to my kicker. And it's just not the way to go, especially in college. And then East Carolina loses the game. And by the way, their kicker was an all-conference first-team kicker last year. So he misses the extra point. They get the ball back. They're in position for the field goal, and he misses it again. And that's why East Carolina loses to NC State. So NC State dodges a bullet there early in the season. And then before we go to some of the games this week, Tom Kakert, I think I brought this up when we were talking Big Ten. Tom Kakert, who was with Rivals, covers the Iowa Hawkeyes. I asked him to give me a betting trend that I could share along with our audience on our picks each week for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Tom said to bet the under in first half Iowa games. He is 1-0. I didn't even have to look at the line. He's 1-0 because we know they went under the under. in the first half in week 1. So that's Tom Cakert's little, non-expertise handicapping tip. Go with the under in first half games with the Iowa Hawkeyes. All right, let's talk this week, Alabama, Texas. And we saw what Georgia did to Oregon. Texas seems to be a little bit more ahead than Oregon. Not that we foresaw Oregon would look that inept in the first week of the season, but we know how good Georgia is. We also know how good Alabama is. What are you thinking about this game? Is this one of those games where the point spread's a little bit too high and you're just going to stay away from it? Or do you think the point spread is too high and you're going to take those points?
Well, I made a vow at the beginning of the football season. I am not going to step in front of Alabama. And I'm not going to begin to break my vow and do that this particular week. There's also the other side of the coin about teams that were bowl teams last year and they lose their first game, how they really suffer in game number 2. Circling about. I'm a big Nick Saban fan this year, if you will. And in fact, in the Playbook Football Newsletter, we made one of these rare best bet plays in Alabama. And people think, my goodness, what's in the water you're drinking right now? Because you generally fade football teams like that. But, I think this Alabama football team is going to be pressured. They're going to lay it on. They'll keep their foot in the pedal the whole entire game this football season. They want to leave no doubt. And that's why we're backing Alabama.
Okay, yeah. These two teams, these storied programs, are meeting for the first time in the regular season exactly 100 years ago, back in 1922. Wow. Of course, they played in the postseason, including the 2010 BCS Championship game. Quinn Ewers, we'll see how good he is. This is his chance. It's early in his career to get a chance to show what kind of goodies he has for Texas. Sarkisian, of course, was the offensive coordinator with Alabama just a few years ago. Just a couple of quick trends. Texas has covered 5 straight as double-digit dogs. And if you take a look at Alabama, 13-1 against the spread. Their last 14 versus Power 5 teams in the regular season that are not SEC teams, including 6-0 in the last 6. Okay, next up. Let's stay in the SEC with Tennessee and Pittsburgh, because Tennessee looked every bit as good as we kind of thought they were going to look when the season began. And now they get a revenge kind of situation, taking on a Pitt team that beat them at home last year. This year it's Hendon Hooker, though, from the start. So that's an advantage for Tennessee. I like the revenge aspect. I also think Tennessee's just a better team than Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh did a good job of stealing the win in the backyard brawl against West Virginia. But I'm going to go ahead and take Tennessee and give the 6.
Well, I can't. It's very, very difficult for me. I know Tennessee looked awfully impressive in their first football game, and you can make a case that Pittsburgh should be letting down after that, winning that backyard brawl. And it was pretty much of a brawl. I mean, the game was close. They win by 7 as a 7.5-point favorite in the football contest. But I'm still going to back Narduzzi here. He's really, really good, if you will, in the role of a home underdog, which is, what he's dressing up in now. You've got a role reversal here for Pittsburgh, changing roles from a touchdown favorite now to a home underdog in a game like this. And you take a look at Tennessee. We did this in our database. Following a game when they score 50 or more points, are 1-11 to the spread the next football game. It almost means regression because they top the 50-point plateau, and I think this Pittsburgh defense is good enough to let them regress in this football game as well. I'll be on the Panthers in the contest.
Sticking in the SEC, we have Kentucky and Florida, and this you can kind of call it a rivalry now because Florida dominated for so many years, but the last several years it's been kind of back and forth. Kentucky beating them last year. But if you take a look at it, matter of fact, Kentucky's 2-3 straight up, 5-0 against Florida the last 5 years. As far as what we have seen this year, now Kentucky was not very impressive last week against Miami of Ohio. That was kind of an ugly first start. It was a very close game, and then Kentucky had these consecutive big plays. I believe one was I think it was a block punt maybe for a touchdown or an interception for a touchdown. I forget. And then right after that, there was another turnover, like a play or two later. That set up another touchdown. So there were a couple of plays that the offense did not control for Kentucky that led to immediate I think it was like a 3-point lead, and it went to like 17, just like that. And that was the end of the football game. Now, Levis, I want to see Will Levis. This is the type of situation that I want to see him step up and lead his team to victory, or do everything he can in his power to do it. Because I'm not believing the hype just yet that he's a first round draft pick. I think everybody just always wants to be first to say, I told you he was first round draft pick. I just think it's way too quick. I've seen him play. I understand what they're saying. He's got a strong arm and he's athletic. That's a combo everybody likes in the NFL. But these are the games I want to see. Step up a competition. Let's see what he does. No Chris Rodriguez again, so that could be a big blow as far as the running game. Big win for Napier in Florida last week to kick off the season against Utah.
Well, that's the big key factor in the football game to me, Greg, is that big win by Napier, knocking off LSU and getting away with a tragic mistake in the football game, allowing LSU to sneak down the field and go 99 yards. Are you kidding me? And then tie up the football game and then to escape with a missed extra point. That's a fairy tale ending. And it worked well for Florida in that football game. I think
You're
they're
talking
feeling
about Florida State.
Yeah, Florida State, right. I'm sorry, I was on the wrong Florida football team.
Wrong Florida
Exactly.
team.
Right, both Florida. I used both Florida teams last week, so.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
You still kind of got that drip in your head that
Exactly. But you look at the history in the series here. You look at Kentucky's won 5 in a row to the number inside the series here. And I love the makeup of Mark Stoops and the type of football program that he's put together there. He out-recruits a lot of teams in the Southeast Conference these days. And you're bringing now Florida in here off that big upset win over Utah in a football game like this. Yes, the game's going to be in the swamp. We understand that, but it's not like Kentucky's never played in the swamp before. They've been there and done just that. I think you got a head coach that's tried and true in Mark Stoops, and you got another one here in Florida that's sort of feeling his way around and feeling giddy about what happened with that upset win last week. I like Kentucky plus the points. You'll see a better effort from Kentucky this week than you did from Miami against Miami of Ohio.
Yeah, I'm staying away from the game completely because I kind of see both sides, and I'm just not sure. I want another, because Florida was very fortunate themselves to win the game last week. They played well. I mean, they did a good job at the line of scrimmage. They were able to run the football. Once again, though, Richardson, he's just a one-dimensional quarterback. He's not going to be a pro unless he changes a lot in his mechanics for the next couple of years. He's not even Lamar Jackson, and I don't think Lamar Jackson, in passing. So he's not that type of player just yet. And Kentucky, as you said, Stoops, they're always well defense team. They get Jordan Wright back. He's eligible this week, so that's a big lift. Again, like I said, no Chris Rodriguez. But they were fortunate a little bit. I mean, I was very surprised that Rising threw that pass that he did. Even though the player kind of fell or whatever you want to say, I don't know what he was looking at because the guy wasn't open. It's just a terrible decision by Rising to throw that ball when all you had to do is kick a field goal to go to overtime too. So I think Florida did a good job of hanging in there and waiting long enough where Utah made a mistake, and they won that game. And we'll find out if that's the type of win that Florida needs psychologically to put themselves in a good position now to have a very good season. So,
well, that was my game plan whenever I played tennis, was to always let the other opponent make the mistake.
Yeah. Put it in play.
Yeah, just exactly right. Keep it in play.
Let them go for the winners.
Exactly right. And that's what we saw last week.
All right. And then there's another big game going on late on Saturday night. This is one of the best games under the radar, and that is Baylor and BYU. So, I mean, after the performance BYU looked last week, we talked about how this is a veteran-laden team with a very good quarterback. They're going to have a very good season, but the one thing that might trip them up is that murderous schedule. And this is the beginning of it. Taking on a Baylor team that beat them last year. They beat them by 14 at Baylor. Baylor was a 5-point favorite in that game. I'm going to take BYU in this game, even though some of me was saying, well, I really like both teams, including Baylor. We talked about that. I have them going back to the championship game of the Big 12. But you know what? I think BYU's got a little bit of that edge. They lost to them last year. And I just think that this is going to be a great football game. I really do. I think it's going to be a very good football game. It's probably going to come down to, who turns over the ball or who makes that last mistake that the other team doesn't. But I'll take BYU in this one.
I'm with you with BYU in this football game as well. And you mentioned about the experience aspect. It doesn't get any wider than this. BYU number one in the country in overall team experience. Baylor number 126 in the country
Wow.
in team experience.
Like it.
I mean, that's a big, huge edge in a football game like this. Now you're dressing a team up with 14-point revenge on top of it, and you got Baylor taken to the road for the first time where they've really struggled in the past. They're just 2-10 to the spread in their first road game here in the unfriendly environment, if you will, here of Lavelle Edwards Stadium here. I think BYU is the better football team, and they get the win, and they take home the money.
And by the way, Baylor has not been this far west on a road trip in the regular season since 2006. So.
Wow.
All right, now there are a couple other games out west that I want to bring up since we're out west, and I know one of them we're simpatico. The other one we'll see. Okay, let's start with the one that I know we're simpatico, and that is Arizona at home against Mississippi State. Now, we talked about Arizona before the season. That we talked about how I tried so hard last year to get them on one of those double-digit money line plays, and I almost hit it a few times. And said, "Man, I just want that opportunity again this year. I don't know if I'm going to get it." And then they go out and just hammer San Diego State last week, but it was a 6-point spread, so I wasn't going to jump on it that much. And I figured after that, well, maybe I wasn't going to get the opportunity this week, but I do. I've got it, and I'm running with it. It's a 10.5-point spread for Mississippi State and Arizona, and I have to go with Arizona again. I'm taking them both in the money line and as one of my top plays, 5-star play. They're a 3-1 money line play. And by the way, I have a system because I'm not a professional handicapper. Everybody has their own systems, or you should. This is something that we talk about every year. Your own hand. If you're somebody that does a lot of wagering, my system is I put like these. You could say a point system where I say, okay, if I do a 5-star, I'm gonna risk $300, a 4-star 200, a 3-star 100, upsets 100, and that works for me over the long season. I end up making money that way. And I'll bet upsets outright that I'm not saying I love the game, and we're going to get into that on this one, but sometimes it is, hey, you know what? I really like this outright upset. Other times it's, you know what? I'm not really sure, but it's worth the gamble. Well, in this one, because I have 300 invested on a 5-star, that's why I went ahead and put him as a 5-star, because I'd rather do that and get 11 than just go in the outright upset. But I like both of those situations. And here's a couple of trends. Arizona has covered 7 straight as a double-digit home dog off a straight-up win. They're also 3-1 against the spread as a home dog under Jed Fish, because this is only his second season. And Mississippi State 2-7 against the spread. Their last 9 as a road favorite. I like Will Rogers. I like Mississippi State, but I just, as we talked about in the preseason with Arizona, just like this Arizona program and where it's headed. And maybe this is the game that puts them on the map.
Well, they say sometimes the number makes the game, and I believe that's the case here. You're talking about a double-digit home dog that we just know is going to be vastly improved. They have to be. They were only a 1-win team last year, but they got 50 new players in this football program here, and they've got a real good, respected young head coach in Jed Fish that's leading the charge for the team here. Now you take Mississippi State coming off that big win last week, and it was a big win because they were a red-faced bowler, a team that was embarrassed in a bowl game to end their season the previous year. They got the win, they got the cover, they played really, really rather well. Now they're going to dress up and go out as a double-digit road favorite here. This is a bad, flat spot for Mississippi State. And if they win this football game, it will be by less than a touchdown. And if an upset occurs here, I'm not going to be shocked.
And you talk about those new players. 3 of those new players were all big-time reasons they won last week. The quarterback, Delora, from Washington State. The receiver, Jacob Cowing, from UTEP. And the running back, former 4-star running back from Auburn, DJ Williams. So you had your quarterback, your leading receiver, and your leading running back were not on your team last year.
Yeah, a whole new look to a football team like this and a whole new feeling of confidence here. They're going to be a very, very dangerous dog this year, the Arizona Wildcats. And if we were on them in week one, there's no reason to hop off the train this week.
And then now we're going to talk about that other West Coast game that I like, and the one I'm not sure you like, but there's some trends there that work in my favor, and maybe you do. And I said this when we talked about the Mountain West, that I think UNLV is going to be a bowl sleeper. And this is going to be one of my plays this week, as far as I think I have them outright at 380 on the money line for the outright upset as one of my double-digit upsets. I think I do, right? Or no, I have them as a 5-star. So same situation like Arizona. I'm just going to take the 5-star based on my point situation. But just like Arizona, I like them in both situations. Shocked that Brumfield played so well at quarterback last week, but that's a huge lift to their offense. Ricky White's a transfer wide receiver from Michigan State who had a big game. Cal is only 2-6 against the spread their last 8 as a home favorite. They've got to travel to take on Notre Dame next week. So they're a UNLV. Oh, I got Notre Dame next week. They're college kids. So they might be thinking about next week. And this is the one that really puts it over the top. UNLV is 17-8-2 against the spread in their last 27 as a road dog.
That's amazing. A football team that's been as bad as they've been for as long as they've been to own a good number like that. It's basically because your opponents are always looking down at them and playing to their level. And football teams are going to make a mistake this year by playing down to UNLV because they're not going to be the same team that they've been in the past here. This is a vastly improved football program here. I agree 100% with your side in the football contest. I don't know if I can dive off that high board with the money line play on them, but for sure I'd like them as a dog to cash the ticket.
All right, and then I sent you the 4 double-digit dogs, outright upset wins this week. And as you just said before, with my system, I put $100 on all my upset outright winners. And my strategy is simple. And like this week, I have 4 of them. All I need is 1 to win, and I break even. Okay, and again, I'm not just throwing darts at a board. I mean, there's reasons that I'm picking these teams. So out of the 4, and I also have said this before, and we'll talk about it all season. This is college football. And every single week, you are going to see at least a couple of teams that are 15, 20, 25-point dogs that outright win. It happens every week in college football. You just have to be the one that finds the right team, the right upset. It's not easy. So my 4 this week: Vanderbilt, Duke, Marshall, Georgia Southern. Out of those 4, which one would you side with the most?
Well, it's very tempting to take the points with Marshall, with the Irish letdown, but I'm going to side with Vanderbilt in this football game here. I think there's a new feeling of confidence within the football program here. This is a nice spot, and who are you beating here? You're beating a football team, a program that isn't all that familiar with putting win streaks together, that's for sure. And you got a head coach that's really, really wobbling, sitting on the hottest of flames as it is here. I think Vanderbilt on the money line would be my choice.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. The line goes from 6 to 13 because Sam Hartman comes back, and I completely understand that, 100%. But you got a quarterback that's coming back off of this blood clot injury. I have no idea how well he's going to look in the first game. I mean,
who knows?
Who knows?
Right.
Exactly. And they can't play defense. I mean, they're terrible defensively. They got rid of the defensive coordinator, so they have a new one. And Mike Wright, we talked about this last week, the new quarterback for Vanderbilt. So far, 62% on his passing, 6 touchdowns, no picks. He leads the team in rushing with 247 4 touchdowns. Wake Forest ranked 111th nationally last year in run defense. And they also got this Temple transfer running back, Ray Davis, who's off to a good start. So I look at this and I say, look, Clark Lee, the former Notre Dame defensive coordinator and former Wake Forest defensive coordinator, might be able to coach this team up just once this season, because nobody cares about the Hawaii win. But that one upset win, and I can see this possibly being that. Of course, we could also see Sam Hartman throw 6 touchdown passes. But I also just like the fact that I think this is going to be a high-scoring affair. Maybe you go with the over. I don't know what it is. I'm not a totals guy. But it'll probably be a ton of points in this game.
I wouldn't disagree. And I like the coaching connection, as you mentioned, a former assistant on the Wake Forest staff. That always gets a coach's attention here because he wants to prove that they let the wrong guy go in that sense. I think you had a live dog here. I think Vanderbilt is going to be sneaky this football season.
And a few of the others, just to throw in there, I mentioned Duke. They have a new head coach as a former defensive coordinator, Mike Elko. A big start last week, but that's Temple. But what I like about him is Mike Elko. The defense, first shutout in like 30 years for Duke, I think against FBS teams. So that means something. And how about this? Duke is 29-9 straight up and against the spread in their last 38 non-conference games. Everybody looks at what happened to them last year, but before that, they were actually very good against non-conference games. And they're 3-0 straight up and against the spread versus Northwestern since 2017. While Northwestern is 4-9-2 against the spread in their last 15 versus non-conference. I talked up Northwestern after their win. Love Pat Fitzgerald. They could be the sleeper in the Big Ten. But how many times do you see, whether they're having a good season or not, how many times do you see Northwestern lay like one big egg at home early in the season?
Well, and the big win over Nebraska. I mean,
yeah, that's true. Yeah, right,
I understand Nebraska was a double-digit favorite in the football game. That might have been the worst line we'll see all year long when push comes to shove. And Duke is going to be another one of these football teams that is going to be better, if for no other reason. They have to be better. They couldn't be as bad as they were last year. So I agree with you. I think Duke plus the points. I like that side as well.
And by the way, I know Ali, the running back for Marshall, is not around. That's a big loss. But Marshall is a huge dog in this game. I think Notre Dame is going to have – I know it's the home opener for Freeman, the home opener in general, but there's got to be a little bit of a hangover losing to Ohio State the week before after you've been waiting 6 months to prepare for them, and you're playing Marshall and you're a 21-point home favorite. But Irish, even though they've won 10 straight at home on openers, which is 6-4 against the spread in those games, Marshall's covered 6 straight road openers. There's a couple other trends that factor in that way. So and we see Notre Dame also every year. Notre Dame has one of those non-conference. Well, they're not a conference team, but they have one of those games against non-big teams. And Group of Five could be the right term, where they just come flat. Like last year, it was Toledo. Good Group of Five team, but they shouldn't be barely hanging on to beat Toledo. So I can see this being one of those types of situations.
There's always a letdown for Notre Dame after they play Big Ten teams because they're neighborhood-type football teams. They couldn't have played a bigger Big Ten team than they did last week in Ohio State, and they look very impressive in doing just that. So now suddenly football teams get this sort of a false sense of security after a good win but a loss. And then you go out and you lay a chunk of points doing just that. That's a no-no. And I got to grab the points with Marshall in this game here with you as well.
What did you think, by the way, about that Notre Dame-Ohio State game? Because, on one hand, Notre Dame's defense did a really good job. I mean, if they would have said before the game that would have been the point total you gave up against Ohio State, Notre Dame would have been really happy. They would have been, okay, maybe we have a shot to win this game. But Notre Dame's offense just couldn't really get it done. The quarterback was efficient, but there were just no big plays to be made for Notre Dame against the suspect Ohio State defense last season.
I was more impressed with the defensive job that Ohio State did against Notre Dame. Okay, that's what really impressed me. They didn't panic. They didn't lose their way. They shut them out in the second half. Just churned up the defense here. That was impressive to me. Notre Dame had a good game plan going in. They affected it, especially in the first half. But again, their whole season was, remember, prepared for Ohio State that game. They come close, no cigar, and now they're going to go lay big points in a football game like this. I think that's a no-no.
And then Georgia Southern, by the way, this is the game that Jim Feist is going with. He's taking Georgia Southern. I don't remember if he's got him to outright win. I think he just has the points. But look, Nebraska, raise your hand if you would be surprised if they lost this game. Come on. I mean, that would be Nebraska losing to Georgia Southern. We talked about Helton now being the man in charge. We talked about Georgia Southern playing in the toughest division in the Sun Belt. The other division's a joke, that they could probably win the other division if they were in it. So this is a talented Georgia Southern team. And by the way, Nebraska takes on Oklahoma next week. So I figured, you know what? If they're going to embarrass me for me taking them a couple of weeks ago to win this division, and I'm not gonna go down with the ship. I'm gonna try to make money off of it, and see if they actually embarrass everybody and lose a game like this. I'm not saying they're going to. This is one of those games, like I said, that I just think that why not just throw some chips in there just in case.
Well, if that just in case happens, we're going to be talking about the first head coaching change in college football this year. That's almost a
Yeah,
certainty.
exactly.
But I agree with you, at least on the handicap side of it, I think Georgia Southern has to be the play against
Yeah, a lot
Nebraska.
of points there.
Yes.
Okay, Mark. So first week in the books in college football. First week getting ready to be in the books in the NFL. It's got to be a busy time over at Playbook Sports.
Yeah, very busy, Greg. Our magazines are still flying off the shelf. We've got a few of them left. If anybody hasn't got theirs, I would encourage you to get your copies now while they're still in our office and still in print. And you can also download this week's newsletter, 20 pages, just jam-packed with a lot of winning information. You can check it out all online at playbooksports.com.
Mark, appreciate it. Next week we'll be back to our Thursday recording schedule. Had Labor Day this week. You were on the road as well, so a lot of things conflicted with us. And look, we're always going to have that extra day, which is good. So just in case scheduling does come into play where we could do a Friday, and that's what we're doing. But we're back on our
Cool.
Thursday schedule, and then you're going to be back recording on Wednesdays. You got your own, obviously the channel and your own reports and the show that you do with Victor each week. We just posted it up on your channel a couple hours ago, so that's available for anybody. I'm going to have links in that in the description area of this show itself. So all you got to do is take a look at the description area, open that up. You'll see the link. Check that out. Go right to Mark's page and to the show that he did earlier today with Victor, and that's the one he's going to do every week with Victor. And Victor, King Creole, is that his...
Yeah, Victor King Creole is a big, huge Elvis Presley fan. That was King Creole. Okay, that's Victor.
Okay.
He does a great job. You know he does a
Oh,
great. He does a
absolutely.
perfect job.
Yeah.
Yes,
Is
yes.
he a Southerner?
No, he's from Ohio. He's a Clevelander with me. And in fact, when we moved our office from Cleveland down to South Florida, he came down with us 20 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, so a really, really key employee and a great person as a human being. Really, really a great
And
guy.
did he enjoy the movie that just came out?
I didn't have a chance to ask him yet. Everything's been
I
so
know.
busy.
You'll have to
But
ask him
when
on the air next week.
yeah, ask him. Well, I'll have to ask him for sure. I'll pin him down.
All right, Mark. Enjoy the games this weekend, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Hey, my pleasure as always, Greg. Be well, stay safe, and I'll catch you next week.